She walks past you on the street and you don't see her. You step around her cart in the supermarket. You glance away when her eyes meet yours. You assume, without thinking, without meaning to, that she has nothing to say to you. That her life is small. That whatever is happening behind her face is the predictable, unremarkable static of someone the world has stopped noticing. Her name is Anne. 11 years ago, on a freezing afternoon in early March, she lay paralyzed on the floor of a small apartment, her heart clenched like a fist inside her chest. Her best friend kneeled beside her, sobbing, asking her again and again to let her call 911. Anne refused. She had been adopted 3 times as a child. She had walked through foster homes and orphanages and apartments she could no longer afford. She had spent 50 years saying no to her own life. And now, lying on the floor in a cross-shaped position she had not chosen, something began to peel her open. A voice she had never heard before said, very gently, "Lay there and take it." What happened next did not feel like dying. It felt like being remembered. A golden liquid love wrapped around her body the way a mother wraps her arms around a newborn. The blackness around her opened, and from somewhere deeper than thought, a knowing arrived, total, instant, undeniable. I was the universe in expression, and the universe was within me. Everything was connected. I was everything, everywhere, omnipresent, omniscient. She did not return rich. She did not return famous. Within months of her experience, she lost her fiancé, her car, her apartment, her job, and her health. She became homeless, and she has stayed that way. The woman whose body briefly held the entire universe still has, today, almost nothing. A roof over her head some nights, a few clothes, one very old cat, and a story. This is hers. The night before her heart stopped, Anne was sitting at the final table of a poker tournament, doing what she had taught herself to do for years. Red faces, hold her own face still, count the cards she could feel before they were turned. She was good at this. She had been at the final table many times, but that night, something was wrong. Her hands had begun to tremble. Not the small, almost invisible tremor that comes from caffeine or low blood sugar. A heavier shake, as if the wiring underneath her skin had loosened. Sweat ran down between her shoulder blades. A crawling anxiety pressed against the inside of her chest, with no story attached to it. No danger. No reason. She leaned toward Mark, her fiancé, and said quietly, "Something's up. I don't feel right." He nodded. He had learned over the years to listen when Anne said this kind of thing. They went home. He fell asleep first. Anne curled up behind him, an arm draped across his ribs, the small warmth of his back against her chest. And then, almost immediately, she fell into a dream so vivid she would later describe it as the most real thing that had ever happened to her, until the next afternoon. In the dream, she was standing very close to a cross. The wood was old. The light was the color of bruises. There were soldiers, Roman soldiers with the leather and metal of the empire, and they were holding a long iron stake, not a nail, a stake. They were crossing the man's ankles, one over the other, and they were driving the iron through both of his ankles at the same time. She could feel everything, not as a witness, as a body. She felt the iron go through the bone. She felt the weight of him pulling against the wound. She felt his exhaustion, his grief, his love, his unbroken decision not to fight. Anne woke up at 3 a.m. sobbing, the kind of sobbing that does not come from sadness, but from something deeper that is cracked open and not yet closed. Mark stirred. He had to leave for work in another town, an hour's drive away. He kissed her forehead, told her to rest, and left. She lay alone in the bed, listening to the door close, and to her own breathing, and to a strange silence inside her chest that she could not name. By noon, the silence had a name knocking at the door. Diane came over with a folded newspaper. Diane was Anne's closest friend. She worked at an assisted living facility. She had seen people die before, quietly, slowly, with families standing in the corner. She had also, although Anne did not yet know this, watched her own father die of a heart attack in her arms. Diane did not come over to talk about death. She came to show Anne an article about an adoption law that had just changed. Did you see this? Anne had been adopted 3 times as a child. The last adoption had been sealed under the old laws. Closed records, no contact, no path back. Now, the article said, the state was opening those files. Biological family members would be allowed to register. They would be allowed, eventually, to find her. Anne had been waiting 50 years for that door to either close forever or open. Now, without warning, it was opening. She did not read the article. She and Diane sat at the kitchen table and started talking about her childhood instead. The foster homes, the houses where she had been hit, the houses where she had hidden food, the early adoption that had not lasted, the later adoption that had not been kind, the way her body had learned, very young, that the safest place to put feelings was nowhere. She had been talking for maybe 20 minutes when she noticed her hand had drifted up to her chest. She was holding her sternum, pressing into it. "Are you okay?" Diane asked. "I think so," Anne said. She wasn't. The pressure under her hand had quietly, while she was speaking, become a clamp, as if a hand inside her ribs had closed around the muscle of her heart and was, slowly, deliberately, without hurry, squeezing it shut. Her breath sped up. Her chest began to pop and flutter, irregular and wrong. Her arms went cold, and the woman who had spent 50 years saying no to her life looked up at her best friend and, for the first time, did not have the strength to keep saying it. "I need to lie down." Anne slid off the kitchen chair and lowered herself onto the floor. The hardwood was cold. Her body kept moving without her. Needles of pins and ice ran up the inside of her arms. Her hands went numb. Her legs trembled. The clamp inside her chest grew heavier. It felt as if a parked car had been gently lowered onto her sternum. Without choosing it, her body found a position. Her arms drifted out from her sides. Her ankles fell loose, one tipping slightly across the other. Her palms turned upward toward the ceiling, a cross, the same shape as the man in her dream. Diane was already moving. She grabbed pillows from the couch and propped Anne's feet up. She ran for the heating blanket and tucked it around her trembling legs. She was speaking quickly, almost angrily, the way people speak when their hands are working faster than their fear. "I'm calling 911. She turned toward Anne's phone on the counter, and from somewhere very far inside Anne's chest, beneath the clamp, beneath the pain, a small voice spoke. It was not loud, it was not urgent, it was almost amused. "Lay there, and take it." Anne felt her own eyes go wide. She had never heard a voice like this before. It was not her own thinking. It was not memory. It was not panic. It was a clean, quiet, intelligent presence, as casual as a hand on her shoulder, telling her something she somehow already knew. She tried to lift her arm to take the phone away from Diane. She could not. Her body was paralyzed. She tried to roll. She could not roll. She tried to speak. The words came out, but they took a long time to leave her mouth, as if she were speaking from underwater. "Diane, wait." Diane stopped, the phone in her hand. "Look at me." Diane looked. Anne held her eyes the way she had held cards at the poker table, carefully, deliberately, knowing that the next move would matter forever. "Can you be okay that neither of us understands what is happening right now?" Anne said. "And just allow it to unfold?" Diane's mouth opened. She didn't speak. "I'm not afraid to die," Anne said. "Just let me go." What Anne did not know at that moment was that Diane was 30 seconds away from a memory Anne could not see. Diane was watching her best friend lie on the floor in the exact color her own father had turned the day his heart stopped in her arms. Diane was being asked to do the thing she had not been able to do for him. She said, "Okay." Then she said, "I'm calling Mark." She walked to the next room with the phone. She did not call 911. Anne lay still, and then, gently at first, like the first low note of a slow piece of music, A wave of peace washed through her body. It was not the peace of relief. It was not the peace of medicine. It was something Anne had no comparison for. A thick, golden, almost edible peace soaking into the pain like warm light soaking into cloth. The clamp in her chest was still there. The pain was still there. But something else was sliding underneath it now, carrying it, the way a river carries a leaf. She heard Diane in the next room. Diane was speaking to Mark. Anne could hear every word, clearly, almost too clearly, as if Diane were speaking directly into her ear. She's white as a ghost. I'm losing her. I promised her I wouldn't call the squad. Mark, please, can you come? Anne did not feel the distance between her body on the floor and Diane in the next room. She did not feel any distance at all. She suddenly understood, with quiet astonishment, that she was standing in two places at once. She was lying on the floor with her arms out and her ankles loose, and she was, somehow also, outside her body, looking down at the room, and outside the room, looking at the apartment, and outside the apartment, looking at the street. She could see all of it. Inside, outside, above, below. The car parked at the curb. The way the light fell on the hallway floor. The way Diane's hands shook around the phone. The exact shape of her own body, lying still in the cross position, eyes closed, lips slightly parted. She thought, with the clear curiosity of a child, I'm in two places at once. How interesting. The peace washed through her again, and then very gently the world she had known for 50 years, the apartment, the floor, the friend in the next room, began to dim. Diane came back into the room with the phone. She knelt down. She laid the phone on a pillow next to Anne's ear, with Mark still on the line. He says he's coming, Diane said. I have to go home for a minute. I need my blood pressure medicine. Anne could not answer her. Diane was crying. She was crying the way a person cries when they know they are walking out of a room they may never walk back into. She picked up Anne's wrist as if to feel a pulse, and instead held it against her own cheek and said, Why would you do this to me? Then she stood up. Then she walked out. Anne lay alone on the floor with Mark's voice rising and falling on the pillow next to her ear, the way the sound of a radio rises and falls in the next house over. She tried to answer him. She didn't know if her mouth was moving. She didn't know anymore if it mattered. The peace came back. This time it did not come in waves. It came as a darkness, not a frightening darkness, not the darkness of unconsciousness, a full darkness, soft and total, the way the night sky is full above a desert. The pain in her chest went quiet. The room went quiet. Mark's voice on the phone went quiet. Even the sound of her own thinking went quiet. And in the quiet, something began to show itself to her. It was not a film. It was not a montage. It was an energy. In the darkness, she became aware of a current, a slow, intelligent, circular current, moving back and forth in front of her. The current had no faces. It carried impressions instead, small clouds of feeling, old textures of breath, fragments of memory that Anne realized with a jolt were hers. The current paused. A figure came forward, not a person, but a shape, a shadow with the weight of one. Anne understood, without being told, that this was someone she had hurt when she was young. The shape released a feeling. It was the exact feeling Anne had given them the day she had hurt them. The feeling traveled across the dark space like a thrown ball, and Anne caught it. It hit her ribs. It hit her face. It went through her skin. She was, for a moment, the shape, receiving what she had thrown, and then she was herself again, holding what had come back. She understood. The thing she had thrown had not gone away. It had circled. It had returned to her exactly as she had sent it, and it had been, quietly, steadily, for years, sitting inside her body. She watched the energy move back and forth between them, the shape and herself, the giver and the receiver, and she realized that the words, "Give and you shall receive," were not a moral instruction. They were not a sermon. They were a physical law. as exact as gravity, as ordinary as breath. Whatever you sent, you got back. Whatever you got, you had sent. There was no separation between the two. The shape dissolved, the current quieted, and Anne, still in the darkness, still without a body, still without a sense of where she was, felt something else come into focus around her. Not in front of her. Around her. As if the entire darkness had become aware of itself, and that awareness was arranging itself into a single, intense, perfectly still point. A focal point of attention so complete that it had no edges, no past, no future, no elsewhere. A point of now. Anne was the point. Or, and this was harder to put into words, Anne was the point. But the point was also the entire universe, and the universe was happening around the point, and the point was somehow aware of itself happening. There was no time, there was no clock, there was no waiting. There was only this, a still, perfectly silent center, and around it, flowing through it, dancing through it, passing into it and out of it without ever disturbing it, everything that had ever existed. Anne understood, with a quiet that was almost laughter. This is me. This is what I am underneath. She had spent 50 years thinking she was the noise inside her head, the fear, the judgments, the endless commentary about what was wrong, what was missing, what should have been different. She had been so loud inside herself that she had never noticed the silent watcher in the middle of her own attention. The watcher was her. Not the noise, not the story, the watcher. In this place there was nothing to want, because nothing was missing. There was nothing to fear, because nothing could touch the point. There was nothing to lose, because there was no one separate to lose anything. She rested in it, for what may have been a moment, for what may have been forever, and then, very gently, something began to come for her, a warmth approaching from somewhere she could not point to, a brightness that did not have a direction because in this place there were no directions. She felt herself, for the first time in 50 years, waited for. The light arrived around her body the way a tide arrives around stones. It was gold, not the gold of metal, not the gold of paint, a living gold, a gold that moved, that breathed, that had the soft thickness of warm honey and the pure motion of clean water. It poured around her, then through her, then around her again, circling her body in slow, patient revolutions, the way a mother walks in slow circles around a sleeping child. Anne felt herself held. She had not been held like this, by anyone, ever, in her whole life. Not as a baby, not as a child, not by any of the parents she had been given to and then taken away from, not by any lover, not by any friend. The holding she felt now was older than people. It was older than language. It was older than Anne. She rested in it. The gold continued to move. It began to flow through her body in a slow figure 8, entering through the top of her head, looping down through her chest, crossing at the place where the clamp had been, looping up through her stomach, returning to the top of her head, beginning again. With each pass, the gold seemed to find something inside her, some old fear, some old sentence she had been telling herself, some judgment she had carried for so long she had forgotten it was hers, and gently, without permission, dissolve it. The fear of her mother giving her up. Dissolved. The shame of the foster homes. Dissolved. The hardness she had built around her heart at 15, 16, 25, 40. Dissolved. The rage at every man who had not stayed. Dissolved. The years of saying no under her breath at her own life. Dissolved. The gold did not argue with any of it. It did not lecture her. It did not say, "You should not have felt this way." It simply held each one, looked at it the way a mother looks at a sleeping child. And the moment it was looked at like that, the thing was no longer there. Anne, with the smallest curiosity left inside her, asked the light, "What are you?" The answer did not come in words. It came as a knowing, dropped into her like a stone dropped into still water, sending rings of certainty out to every edge of her. The answer was three things at once. It said, "I am God." It said, "I am love." And then it said something Anne had not expected. It said, "That's you." She tried to argue. The gold continued to flow. "That's you," it said again, gently. "God, love, light. That's what you are. That's what you have always been." She could not argue. She could not, in this place, hold a thought that was not true. The lie would not stay together long enough to speak. She tried to find one anyway. She had been told her whole life that she was none of this. She had been told in church basements and orphanage hallways that God was something far away, something separate, something she had to earn, slowly on her knees by being good enough, and she had never felt good enough. The gold heard the thought before she had finished it. "You did not need to earn this," the knowing said. "You were always this." The earning was the only lie. The thought broke apart inside her like sugar in warm water. There was nothing left to argue with. Verses she had heard 100 times in church basements began to surface inside her, but they were not words now. They were tastes. "You are the light of the world. Be still and know that I am God. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all things shall be given to you." Each verse was a different angle of the same simple, solid, obvious thing she had not been able to see for 50 years. She was made of this. She had always been made of this. Everyone was made of this. The gold receded, not away from her, but into her, the way light recedes into a window at dusk. And as it did, the universe around the point of her awareness opened. Anne saw it then, not as a picture, not as a metaphor, as a fact. She saw the size of what she was inside. She saw galaxies, actual galaxies, with arms of slow fire and small, perfect stars sitting inside her body. She saw the planets, every one of them, hanging in the spaces between her ribs. She saw the entire ocean of space, with its dust and its light and its quiet, vast distances, contained, easily, gently, without effort, inside her chest. And at the same time, she saw her body, the small, tired 50-year-old body of a woman who had been adopted 3 times and had nothing in the bank, inside the universe. There was no contradiction. The universe was inside her. She was inside the universe. There was no edge between the two. A knowing, the largest she had received yet, dropped into her. I was the universe in expression, and the universe was within me. Everything was connected. I was everything, everywhere, omnipresent, omniscient. She understood in that single second why she had spent her entire life lonely. She had not been lonely because no one was there. She had been lonely because she had forgotten that everything was her, and she was everything. The wall between me and not me had never been real. She had built it, slowly, day by day, year by year, beginning at birth, out of every small no she had said inside her own head. The wall had taken 50 years to build. The gold had taken less than a minute to take it down. Anne felt herself crying without tears. She felt herself laughing without sound. She felt, for the first time, in a way that did not depend on anyone else being kind to her, home. And then, at the very edge of this knowing, where the universe inside her began to brighten again, she heard something new. A reel. The soft mechanical click of an old film projector, somewhere behind her in the gold. A movie. Anne turned her attention toward it, with the calm curiosity she had now. The curiosity of someone who had stopped being afraid of what would come next, because nothing that came next could be outside of what she already was. The reel began to turn. In front of her, or perhaps inside her, she could no longer tell. A long ribbon of swirling light unspooled. It looked like film. It looked like dance. It looked like something between. Shapes moved across it, soft, gestural, almost musical, like shadows of people moving behind a sheet held up to a lantern. Anne watched the shapes flow back and forth, fascinated, and after a while she became aware that she could direct this. that every question she let surface in her mind would land in the film, and the film would respond. She thought with the lazy curiosity of a child, "What is this? Why am I seeing this?" The film stopped. The light steadied, and the swirling shapes resolved themselves into three figures: a woman, a man, and a baby, small, no more than 6 months old, held against the woman's hip. The room around them was not visible. Only the three figures made of soft light framed against an empty stage. The woman's body was tilted toward the man, but her arms were turned in toward the child, the way a body turns when it is being asked to release something it does not want to release. Anne heard sound, not music, not voiceover, screams. Long, low, full-body screams, the kind of screaming that comes from inside the bones. No, no, no. And underneath the screaming, the high, unmistakable cry of a baby. Anne felt her attention sharpen. Who is this? Why am I seeing this? The knowing arrived before she had finished asking. The woman was her biological mother. The man was a stranger, an official of some kind, sent by the state. The baby was Anne. And the room, the empty, invisible room behind the three figures, was the room where Anne had been given up for adoption. She felt the screams again, her mother's screams, her own crying, the quiet, professional silence of the man, and underneath all of it, something Anne had never heard before in her own story. Her mother had not wanted to let her go. Anne had spent her whole life carrying a different version. She didn't want me. She gave me up because she didn't want me. She didn't fight for me. She left. She had walked through 50 years with that sentence carved into the inside of her chest like an inscription on a wall. The film said something else. The film said she did not want to. She had no choice. She screamed for you. Anne watched the woman's arms turn inward toward the baby. She watched the man, gently and without cruelty, take the baby from her. She watched the woman break, the way a body breaks when it is being asked to do something that violates everything in it, and continue to scream long after the baby was gone. And Anne realized something then that was bigger than the woman, bigger than the man, bigger than the baby. She realized she had been screaming no her entire life. Not just at her mother, not just at the foster homes, not just at the adoptions that had not worked, the homes that had not been kind, the lovers who had not stayed, at all of it, at all of life. Every morning of every year she had woken up and said, somewhere underneath her thinking, no. No to her body, no to her circumstances, no to the people around her, no to the day she had been given. No, 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 50 years of no. And the world, being the perfect mirror it had just shown her it was, had given her exactly what she had sent. Resistance, sent out, returns as resistance. She was not the victim of her life. She was its architect. The realization was not cruel. The gold was still around her, holding her gently as the film continued to turn. The realization was simply clear, the way a window is clear after rain. She thought very softly, what if I had said yes? The knowing came back, the largest one yet, quiet, certain, total. Everything would have been different. In the gold, in the silence, in the perfect stillness of the point, Anne understood that the entire shape of her life, the loneliness, the foster homes, the closed faces of strangers, the long years of sitting at poker tables and reading other people for the small currency of money she did not really need, had been built on a single, repeated, secret no that no one had ever heard but her. She did not need to say no anymore. She felt in that moment the no leave her body. It came out through her skin like breath leaving a room. The screaming behind the film softened. The shadows on the reel grew quiet. The woman in the film bowed her head and was still. Anne tried to say something to her. She did not have the words. She only had the yes, the new, soft, shocking yes that had risen up from somewhere underneath every wall she had ever built. And then, very suddenly, she felt the click. A loud, mechanical, almost playful sound, like a heel hitting a floor. And she was back in her body, sitting up, patting herself down with her own hands, screaming, not in pain, but in joy. I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm alive. Diane was walking back through the front door at exactly the moment Anne sat up. Anne had already known she would. She had seen Diane, somehow, from somewhere, coming up the stairs, her hand on the rail, her face wet. She had seen the moment before it happened, and now it was happening, and the two were the same moment. Diane stopped in the doorway. What happened? Anne could not explain. She tried. She talked too fast. She used words like light and gold and the universe inside me. And Diane's face did not soften. Diane was not crying with relief. Diane was angry. Diane was furious, in fact, the way people are furious when they have been forced to stand still inside someone else's death. "Why would you do that to me?" Diane said. "You don't understand what you did to me." Anne understood later what Diane meant. Diane had watched her father die of a heart attack in her arms years before. She had not been able to save him, and Anne, her best friend, had asked her in the apartment that day to do for her the same thing Diane had once been unable to do for him, to stand still, to not call, to watch. Anne's experience had given her a universe. It had also, without her knowing, walked Diane through the worst hour of her life a second time. This is what nobody tells you about returning. The first weeks afterward, Anne could barely walk 3 steps without stopping for breath. Her body felt as if it had been touched with a 220-volt current and never quite turned back off. She was raw. She was exhausted. She kept asking friends, half joking, half not, whether they would take her to a psychiatric hospital, because nothing in the everyday world made sense anymore. She had, she said later, gone to heaven and come back to hell. Then the world began to take. Mark left her. He did not understand what had happened to her. And to be fair, Anne could not explain it. She lost the apartment. She lost the car. The work she had done before the heart attack required a body she no longer had. 2 years after the heart attack, she went to the hospital with sepsis. The infection nearly killed her. The doctor smiled at her in the recovery room and said, "You're a lucky girl. God has a plan for you." He did not know about the heart attack 2 years earlier. Anne did not tell him. By the time she could stand again, she had nothing. No home, no partner, no money, no work, no place to put a key. She had only one thing she had brought back from the floor: the love. It was still inside her, quiet, steady, and warm, like a low fire that would not go out. When she sat alone in a borrowed room, she could feel the gold light still circling her ribs. When she walked down a street where strangers looked away from her, she could feel, underneath, the pain of being unseen, the unmistakable knowing that she was not alone, had never been alone, and could not be alone, because she was inside everyone she passed, and they were inside her. She had Otis. Otis was her cat. He was 20 years old. His fur had thinned. His kidneys had begun to fail. He had begun to smell very faintly of the body's slow surrender. One night, expecting to find him gone in the morning, she sat on the floor with him in her lap and did something she had not been able to do before. She looked into his eyes and saw him from the place she had been on the floor. She looked at him from the gold. "I love you," she told him. "You can go if you want to. You're perfect either way." She was not lying. She was not bargaining. She was not pretending. She had simply seen, from inside her own experience, that there was nothing imperfect about him. Not his thinning fur, not his failing kidneys, not the small, slowing rhythm of his breath. He was perfect. She let him go in her mind. That night, he ate. He drank. The smell receded. He has been with her ever since. 11 years have passed since the heart attack. Anne is 60 now. She is still without a home of her own. She still depends on the kindness of friends for a roof on most nights. She is, by every measure the world keeps track of, bank account, address, job title, possessions, one of the people the world does not see. And yet, if you sat with her in a coffee shop on a borrowed afternoon, if she trusted you, she would tell you very simply, with no drama in her voice, "I have a roof, I have my cat, I have a few clothes, and I have everything." You will pass someone tomorrow that the world has agreed not to see, maybe in a doorway, maybe at a stoplight, maybe carrying a bag too big for her hands, in a coat too thin for the weather. You will not know what is inside that body. You will not know what she has seen. You will not know whether she has spent 90 seconds on a cold floor, holding the entire universe. That is the thing Anne brought back. Not a sermon, not a doctrine, not a system to follow. A question. What if the people you have agreed not to see are the ones carrying the largest things? Some lanterns are not lit in cathedrals. Some are lit on apartment floors in cross positions by people the world has stopped looking at. And some lanterns are meant to be passed. If this story moved something in you, if any part of it lit even a small candle inside your chest, pass it. Send it to someone you love. Send it to someone you have argued with. Send it to someone you have not spoken to in years. You do not have to explain. You do not have to add words to it. The story will do its own quiet work. In the comments, tell me one thing. If you said yes to your life, fully, completely, exactly as it is right now, what would change? And then come back next week. The next lantern is already lit. Subscribe so you do not lose the thread. I will see you on the other side.